Good afternoon, and welcome to iPulse Live. Today is April 4th, 2025. I'm Lilia Carreon.
And I'm Delaney Smith. Earlier this week, President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on vehicles shipped to the U.S. Then on Wednesday, he administered even more tariffs. Here's my colleague, Lillian Carreon, to talk about them and how they will affect the average American.
President Donald Trump is imposing a 10% tariff on imports from all countries, plus higher rates for Cambodia, Vietnam. Here are 5 ways experts say Americans might feel the impact. 1. Higher prices.
It's thousands of dollars. We're talking at least 2% of the median household income that this will cost American households.
Most economists predict U.S. businesses that pay the tariffs will pass on some or all of the cost to consumers. The Trump administration downplays that.
The businesses don't have to pass them on, or the producers in the other countries can eat the tariffs.
2. An economic slowdown.
What you're seeing here is a potential haircut to GDP for 2025 of about 3%.
JP Morgan predicts a global recession if Trump maintains his tariffs. Economists say a 1930 trade war deepened at the Great Depression.
We know what happened in 1929, 1930 in the crash.
Trump's supporters note other countries don't have to retaliate.
They're going to bring their tariffs down because they need the U.S. to be active trading partners.
3. Blows to retirement funds if the stock market doesn't fully rebound. 4. High interest rates if the Federal Reserve sees too much inflation. And 5. Growth for some domestic manufacturers. Economists say they're the biggest winners under the Trump's tariffs.
We have to save the people in the industries of the United States.
Yesterday, the stock market dropped sharply, a decline that can be attributed to these tariffs.
Today, Dow Jones has dropped 1,634 points as of now. We went to one Boca Raton business where the financial squeeze is already starting.
Brian Martinez showed us around his family tile store in Boca Raton. They focus on home projects.
Porcelain tile comes from Spain, Italy, India, Turkey, some from Brazil, Ecuador.
And the impact of new tariffs for Valentina decorative floors is immediate.
I have 2 emails. One is from India. They said about 25%, and Elysium 10%. For our cost.
And those are sharply higher costs for its imported tile that the business can absorb all on its own.
The cost for the consumers is going to go up.
The family business endured the COVID shutdowns and weather inflation spikes. They hope they and their 15 employees can cope with tariffs.
And yes, of course, if we don't have people, buying and working, and we're not able to, keep some of our guys. So that is also a concern.
We asked Brian Martinez what he would say to President Trump if he had the chance.
Keep the working class in mind. We are consumers as well, the middle class people. And we are worried. It is a concern, and, hopefully it's temporary.
Hope mixed with deep worries as the tariff war hits home. My name is Lilian Carreon, reporting for iPulse News.
And now to news on health and vaccines. Major leadership changes are taking place at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Controversy has sparked and raised questions about the future of public health policies. I had the chance to sit down with infectious disease specialist and public health expert, Dr. David Dodson, to discuss more on this topic.
Dr. David Dodson, thank you so much for joining us. Many of our viewers watching may wonder, will I still be able to get my child their routine vaccines like the measles shot or the COVID or flu booster if I so choose? What do you think?
Well, Delaney, thank you for having me, first of all. And as you know, I'm an infectious disease specialist, so I've been watching these developments especially closely. So if you step back and look at the big picture, immunizations have been one of the major successes in public health in the United States and the world. And we used, like for measles, for instance, 2.5 million children used to die every single year of measles before the vaccine came out. Now that's virtually unheard of. So we've had a system in place where we immunize all our children and college students and military recruits for many, many years, and it's worked very, very successfully. We've really decreased sickness and mortality from all of these diseases. Unfortunately, in the last few years, there has been a resurgence of anti-vaccine thought, and that's showing up in people on the internet, but also some of our public leaders. So I would hope that all of those shots will remain available just as they always have. That's the only way to keep these diseases from occurring. But if we start having access problems, then we're going to see things like measles outbreaks, which we haven't seen in decades.
You mentioned this anti-vaccine thought. Some argue that vaccines and other medications have not been studied as thoroughly as they should be. Do you think the Food and Drug Administration needs to take a fresh look at these products?
No, the fact to say that they haven't been studied is ridiculous. These are some of the safest vaccines and most effective vaccines, and they've been used in all countries, not just the United States, for decades. Measles vaccine came out in 1963, so it's been around for 60, 70 years. And so we've studied it enough, and these innuendos and half-baked truths or half-baked statements that they haven't been studied is absolutely false.
And the claim that the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine specifically is linked to autism is resurfacing. What does the research show us?
That the autism link has been thoroughly debunked. What happened was a researcher in Great Britain decided to make a splash, and so he doctored some data and published a paper, and that's the way this all began. Mm-hmm. And subsequently, the paper was withdrawn. The guy was, he was reprimanded, and it never was a thing. But it sort of has a life of its own on the internet. So there is no link between MMR and autism. That's been thoroughly proven.
And with more scrutiny on childhood vaccines, do you believe parents should have more autonomy in deciding whether to vaccinate their children without government mandates?
Well, there's two ways to look at that. One is the individual, should I vaccinate my child? But the other is when you get a vaccination, you're doing not only yourself a favor, but you're also doing all of those around you a favor. Because when you're vaccinated, then you're not susceptible, and then that's how epidemics get started. So it's sort of a public health aspect to getting a vaccination as well as your own. So again, the childhood vaccines are safe and effective, and it's a responsible thing to do to get your child vaccinated.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. David Dodson. This has been very insightful.
Well, it's a pleasure. Anytime. Thank you, Delaney.
Anti-Semitism has been on the rise in America recently. What are the root causes of this discrimination? How can we eliminate it? And how are other communities being impacted as well? Reporter Davendra Velvis spoke with prominent figures at Lynn's 6th Annual Holocaust and Genocide Program to get answers.
Anti-Semitism is on the rise. 7 in 10 Jews have reported personally being targeted. This was a hot topic at Lynn this week as the university hosted its 6th Annual Holocaust and Genocide Awareness Program. I spoke to one of the event organizers and speakers, Dr. Robert Watson, Distinguished Professor of American History at Lynn University, to gain insight on these topics.
What impact has social media had on the spread of anti-Semitic ideologies?
I think it's one of the main culprits, quite frankly. Starting in 2016, as I mentioned, we had an unprecedented spike in hate crimes, and so much of it is occurring on or is nurtured by social media. It's become not the information superhighway, it's become the disinformation superhighway. Conspiracy theories, hate, pseudoscience. Just within the past couple of days, somebody sent me something saying, the COVID vaccination is killing everybody. It's a conspiracy theory, it's a hoax, but people believe it. We lack the critical thinking to decide what is and isn't true. So the problem is, what you're doing, you're being trained as a journalist. I'm a trained historian, The people at ABC, it's fact-checked, it's peer-reviewed. At NBC, it's refereed. You're learning from one of the best anchors in the history of NBC here on our campus. But on social media, it's not fact-checked, it's not peer-reviewed, it's not refereed. Heck, it's not even spell-checked. And people are getting things that don't even sound plausible and are incorrectly written, and they're like, oh, it must be true. So that's the problem with social media.
And then anti-Semitism has been an issue for hundreds of years. Do you think it will ever end?
Tragically, it doesn't seem like it will. Some things seem to be encoded in the human fabric, us versus them, either or, you're a friend or an enemy. And the Jewish community, for quite frankly 2,000 years, has been on the receiving end of the absolute worst that humanity has. I'm not hopeful, but I'm continuing to fight in the hope that we can at some point make a change. If there is a change to be made, I guess the one glimmer of hope is your generation. You know, the governor and president don't like the word woke, but your generation is woke in that you're more open-minded. You have friends from every racial, ethnic, linguistic, and religious group on earth. You're all good to go with it. So your generation doesn't suffer the same prejudices that every single generation before it, including mine, suffered. So.
In addition to the exhibit, I had the opportunity to speak with the focal point of the event, the Senior Emeritus Rabbi of the Sinai Temple in Los Angeles, Rabbi David Wolpe.
I think one of the things that fuels the trend is both money and influence from the Middle East, where the conflict certainly spikes anti-Semitism, an increase in conspiratorial thinking, because anti-Semitism is almost always a conspiracy. It's always the Jews control the banks, the Jews control Hollywood, the Jews control the government. And then I think the third thing is fear. In a climate where people are less certain, comfortable, stable, and I think that this is true after COVID and economic uncertainty, they look for someone to blame. And unfortunately, human nature is not we are to blame, it's they are to blame. The principal way that you fight anti-Semitism is with truth, but it's really difficult online, which certainly is responsible for some of the spike in anti-Semitism, to disprove something that is easily made viral. So if you say this terrible thing is true, it will have 1,000 reposts before you say, actually, that's not true. And then to catch up with it is very hard. And that's why events like what we're doing today at Lynn are so important, because you need ambassadors for truth in an empire of lies, and all too often that's what social media proves to be. The natural impulse of human beings is to react to the negative. I mean, this is built into our DNA. We are programmed to notice the bad stuff more than the good stuff, which means that if you start a rumor about how bad Jews are in one way or another, that will automatically get people to take notice of it. And so it spreads much, much more than if it was a balanced, factual, thoughtful review of this, that, or the other.
How can we effectively fight anti-Semitism while ensuring that these efforts do not infringe on our freedom of speech and academic freedoms?
That is a really tough and a really good question, because the impulse is to say, well, you're just not allowed to say that kind of stuff. But that's not the country we want to live in. We want to be able to live in a country where people can say pretty much anything other than inciting other people to violence or creating an atmosphere where people are going to be physically hurt. But at the same time, you want people to be able to speak responsibly in public spaces. Honestly, the best way to counter bad speech is public disapproval.
A lot of your efforts are focused on anti-Semitism, but what about other demographics, such as the Muslim students who say there's a sharp rise in their number?
I think for some Muslim students, they feel a real sense of discrimination that should not be discounted. Ideally, fighting one hatred fights all hatreds. In the real world, different hatreds operate differently, but maybe we can create a society where there are simultaneous battles. That is, you can fight racism specifically, anti-Semitism specifically, discrimination against Muslims specifically, but at the same time also try to create a world in which all hate is considered LGBTQ, transgender, in which all hate is just considered out of bounds.
You've been critical of universities who are not fighting against anti-Semitism. What should these universities be doing?
The first thing they should be doing is enforcing the laws that already exist. You shouldn't allow people to break into classrooms, to break into libraries, to take over the campus, all of those sorts of things. The second thing that they should be doing is acknowledging what the definition of anti-Semitism is, whatever definition they choose, and there are a variety, and then saying this kind of speech is not tolerated on our campus any more than racist speech would be tolerated on campus.
Earlier this semester, the Social Impact Lab collaborated with the Women's Foundation of Florida to raise awareness about period poverty in the United States. Lynn students participated by packing menstrual pads, tampons, and wipes to support women in need.
This is an event for women who are unable to afford sanitary products. Believe it or not, millions of women around the world don't have access to tampons, pads, or wipes, basic sanitary products.
It's actually banned in the state of Florida to talk about periods with students before they reach middle school, when the average girl is getting her period at the age of 9 or 10 in elementary.
Students begin by lining up while grabbing paper bags to stuff 5 sanitary pads, 5 wipes, and 5 tampons. After packing these items, students add their final touch, which was a small letter with a positive message of empowerment. It all happens in America because low-income women are unable to afford these items. Women in other countries have the problem because they do not have access to simple sanitation services such as toilets or bathrooms. But in this story, we are talking about American women.
We have young women who are starting their menses and thinking they're dying because they're not getting the information they need to prepare themselves and be able to handle those situations and that huge piece of life that all women go through.
50 of these bags were donated to mothers and babies, while others were donated to the Women's Foundation of Florida. Reporting for iPulse News, this has been Carla Rivera Medina.
And now to our weatherman, Noah Barclay, for the weekly forecast. Noah?
Hello, thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction. As you'll see here up in Arkansas and through the middle of the country, unfortunately, there has been a lot of tornadoes over the last few days, and that is going to continue today and then going into tomorrow. There is a moderate chance. That is the second highest chance you can get according to the National Weather Service, and thank you to them for this graphic. So unfortunately, it is looking pretty rough up there. So hopefully that does begin to die down unexpectedly, and hopefully we do get to see less tornadoes today and tomorrow. Currently, there is nothing in Florida, as you see on the next image. There is no precipitation that is around. Not going to be anything for the next few days, actually, so you're in good luck if you want to be outside. On the next image, you'll see at Tuesday at 5 o'clock, there it does start to be some thunderstorms, and those thunderstorms do begin to pop up in the evening hours instead of the morning hours. So there's going to be nothing that morning, but like I said, in the evening, they do start to pop up. So if you're going to go out in the morning, because they actually are going to be thunderstorms, not just showers. So it is going to be a little rough. So I do not recommend driving fast on the road on the way back from work, because do expect some lightning, do expect some really heavy rains and some really, really strong wind. It is going to be, unfortunately, that type of day. On the next image, you'll see that in the morning, very much in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, in fact, on Wednesday, there's going to be rains. Perhaps some thunderstorms carrying over from Tuesday. So hopefully you won't be waking up from the lightning that is going to happen that night, but there is going to be those thunderstorms. They'll turn into showers as the night goes on, but as we get further on into the night, they'll just start to dissipate, but then they start to refire again on Thursday. But as you'll see on the 7-day forecast, we do have that 3-day spite of rain, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 in a row. But right now, we do get 4 days in a row of sun, which is, obviously, if you like the sun, that's great. But of course, as we get more into the week, unfortunately, we do start to get not just showers, but we do start to get thunderstorms. So it is going to be a pretty weatherly week, if you want to call it that. But thank you very much. Appreciate it. Back to you guys.
They often say teamwork makes the dream work, and that is exactly what talented filmmakers from Lynn University accomplished. Film student Monica Goldback-Bridgers directed her film Love is a Dagger, which was made during a study abroad trip in Japan. Here's reporter Lisette Guillen with the full story.
They call them the Fab Four. Last week, Monica Goldbach-Bridgers' film was showcased at Filmgate Miami. The film was shot in 4 places in Japan, including Tokyo, Hiroshima, Kyoto, and Kanazawa. The film is about Wes, an obsessive lover who stalks Amelia while roaming the streets of Japan. For Monica, the film was a chance to let her creativity flow.
I really love Hong Kong 90s thriller cinema, and also Japan is such a beautiful country as well, and anywhere you go, it would just inspire a new shot to come out.
But directing the film was no easy task.
It's very hard to condense the story under 20 minutes, and it was also hard to just film it in general because we did it during a study abroad trip to Japan, and we had 2 weeks to write, film, and edit the entire film.
In addition, the team had to wake up way before the crack of dawn to get the shot just right.
The climax of the film takes place in the hotel room. Pretty sure that was 3 or 4 a.m.
The climax was when it took a bloody twist as Amelia stabs Wes. Their hard work paid off when they won the audience award.
I was not expecting to win anything. I was just going to go down, have a great time. And we won, and the 4 of us that were there, we all just looked at each other, group hug. It was a lot of fun.
Although Monica is a senior at Lynn expected to graduate in May, this was the opportunity of a lifetime for her.
Being a female filmmaker is a challenge, but it's something that I think is a really beautiful because I get to meet other female filmmakers at festivals like this. And we get to show our art together and show female experience in different ways and how broad those topics can be as well.
Alma Sekien for iPulse.
Tonight, we explore a pressing question in classical music. How do classical orchestras stay relevant in a world dominated by viral pop hits and streaming algorithms? Reporter Miguel Garcia spoke to Lin maestro Guillermo Figueroa about the state of classical music and the challenges faced by the new composers.
Is there room for classical music in the pop music world? Of course, there is.
His name is Guillermo Figueroa. He is the music director of the Lin Philharmonia. He teaches violin and conducts the orchestra of Lin University, in one of the top conservatories of music of the United States. He has become a huge advocate of new classical music.
In this country, there are more orchestras all over the country than there has ever been in any period of history. I have no worries whatsoever about the future of classical music.
New classical music is also known as contemporary music.
Classical music is a bit of a misnomer. Let's call it art music, music that you simply listen to without anything else. Has changed a lot in the last 30 or 40 years. People used to think of contemporary music as something that they absolutely didn't want to hear. Contemporary music has become much more listenable.
The conductor of the orchestra also talks about how important it is to have a new composition be played by a student orchestra. Why is it important to have student works played by the orchestra?
When I teach violin students, for instance, they learn a new work, they can go and play it with piano. If they're lucky, they can get to play with orchestra, they can organize the recital, they can get friends to play with. But if you're a composer, what's your instrument? Your instrument is the orchestra, if you're writing for orchestra, which you did. So how in the world are you going to get that experience if you're not given a chance to perform, to have the work performed and listen, them being listened, and most importantly, you listen to them so that you know that what you do works or doesn't work, what you may want to change or not change. So it's vitally important that music schools give composers a chance to have their works performed. That has been the case in every era of music.
I was lucky enough that night to have Maestro premiere a work of mine.
Here at Lynn, we have an opportunity to give chances for composers like you to have their music learned, and I expect that we're going to continue to do that.
It was an honor to have my piece Sagittarius A played by the orchestra.
Good afternoon, everybody.
really happy to be here. This is an amazing opportunity to get a work play. Thank you, maestro.
I am Miguel Ángel Garcia for iPulse.
Baseball is back with the 2025 Major League Baseball season kicking off last week, and controversy has already followed. The New York Yankees' strong start has sparked debate over the use of torpedo bats, which some believe provide a competitive advantage. Swanson Gibson Jr. talked with Lynn University baseball players and coaches to get their thoughts on the matter.
High drive, right field. See ya! A 3-run home run for Jazz Chisholm.
Baseball has brought forth a new means of innovation, the torpedo bat, impacting the nature of the sport in a significant way for players in the big leagues and those aspiring. Although Lynn baseball uses metal bats, that didn't stop them from sharing their perspective on the impact of the wooden torpedo bats.
I genuinely think since they didn't really break any of the rules and they're technically legal, there's really no violation there. And I mean, other players other than the Yankees are using them. So I think it's fair game, and I think it's good for baseball. It provides more action. Everybody loves the long ball.
Bats in baseball, there's always been things done to improve the bat. For example, cupping the end. That has been something that was done a long time ago, to have a cup where you shave a little hole, which is perfectly legal. And that has stuck. So we'll see. I'm interested to see if the torpedo thing sticks. It's really a preference more than something that's going to be good for everybody.
It all came to a head this past weekend as several players for the New York Yankees used torpedo bats, contributing to an offensive onslaught against the Milwaukee Brewers. The Yanks hit 15 home runs and averaged 12 runs in their first 3 games, winning all 3 with the inclusion of the bats. Many baseball followers suggested that the bats used gave the Yankees a competitive advantage over their opponent. The torpedo bat was designed by former MIT physics professor Aaron Lenhart, who served as the Yankees hitting coordinator last season en route to their World Series appearance. Typically, the top half of wooden bats possess the sweet spot, providing the utmost power over other regions. Conversely, the torpedo bat's designed as the sweet spot in the middle region of the bat, where players get jammed upon making contact. The unorthodox crafting of this bat provides additional power to drive baseballs further.
The beauty about baseball is there's numbers, and it's 162 games, and I think baseball will look at it at the end of the season to really get a good data set about whether this bat has an effect or doesn't have an effect on the game.
Despite some negative chatter, there are some who support the inclusion of torpedo bats, and they will most likely be here to stay, contributing to more exciting moments for America's pastime. Reporting for iPulse News, I'm Swanson Gibson Jr.
Last month, Mickey 17 debuted in theaters, starring actors Robert Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo. The film follows a man whose clone and humanity strives to find a new planet to colonize. In this episode of Couch Potatoes, Lisette Guillen and Guillermo de Domenico review the movie.
Last weekend, me and Lisette went to watch Mickey 17.
Yep.
And personally, I'm a very big fan of the director of the movie, Bong Joon-ho. Most people know him from Parasite, and for me, this movie of his latest one, not my favorite. I think that I like most of his movies because of how dramatic they are, and they touch on some really deep things. And I think this one, it was very clear he wanted to be a bit more goofy, and honestly, I respect it. It's completely valid to want a bit more fun in your life after doing so much, I guess, sad stuff.
Yeah, for me, I'm not really too familiar with the director's work. Like I said, I know he did Parasite, which I did not watch it, but it's on my watch list. But I liked how goofy it was. I'm really glad that we got to see Robert Pattinson's style of acting more. He's an English actor, but in this movie he has an American accent, and he kind of sounds like a teenager. He's kind of like, yeah, I was cloned, but you know what? That's okay, because I'm Mickey.
For sure. I think that a lot of people remember him because of, Twilight. But
Right.
if you actually look at his body of work, you see, The Batman, Good Times, The Lighthouse. He's just an incredible actor who embodies whatever character that he's tasked with being. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and I also like how this movie really goes into politics without really mentioning it, and also environmental things. So as far as the environmental stuff, it's it really goes into how people share the world with animals. And there's even a line in the movie where it's like, you know, we're the aliens because we're foreign to them. This is practically their territory. And as far as like the political side, you know, you have Mark Ruffalo kind of playing this dictator, and like he thinks he knows so much, and he has this big ego, but really he knows nothing about protecting the planet and his people.
Yeah, I think the movie overall is a good metaphor for these people that, despite being our leaders, are very ignorant.
Yeah.
And that ignorance really takes a toll in the common people. In this case, Mickey, who he's, you know, abused by the system pretty much.
If you want to watch this movie in theaters, it's only 10 minutes away from Lynn. It's at Cinemark Bistro. Bye.
Today marks the 57th year since Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. This day commemorates a deep legacy of justice. The I Have a Dream speech has impacted millions over the years to inspire social equality. Martin Luther King Jr. was a leader, an activist, and an inspiration to all. Toby Naquetti reports on what this day means to him.
Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the greatest civil rights leaders in history. He was more than just a man. He was a symbol of hope, justice, and unity for the Black community and beyond. Instead of accepting injustice, he chose to fight it with words, wisdom, and unwavering courage. As a Baptist minister and civil rights activist, King became the voice of the movement, advocating for equality through peaceful protests, boycotts, and powerful speeches. His leadership in the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 set the stage for a nationwide push against segregation.
Well, I don't know about the summer. I guess I should begin with what we have in store for the spring. I feel that we are in the midst of the most critical period in our nation, and the economic problem is probably the most serious problem confronting the Negro community.
But it was in 1963, during the March on Washington, that he delivered one of the most powerful speeches in history. I Have a Dream. His words ignited a movement inspiring millions to believe in a future where people would be judged by their character, not the color of their skin.
50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves.
His impact was undeniable. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, two landmark pieces of legislation, were direct results of his tireless efforts. He gave Black Americans not just a voice, but a path towards legal and social equality. Even though his life was cut short in 1968, his message lives on. Martin Luther King Jr. was more than a leader. He was a beacon of hope, proving that courage and love can break even the deepest chains of oppression. And this is Toby Naquetti reporting from iPulse News. I did this short piece because MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. is such an influential Black figure amongst my community, not only in America, but also in my home country in Nigeria. He's impacted so many lives, so many people of color, so many people of different backgrounds because of who he was as a person, as an activist, as a leader, and also as an icon to every Black individual around the world. He's still one of my idols, growing up. MLK, Malcolm X, and also other historical Black figures. He's still an icon.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's broadcast. I'm Delaney Smith.
And I'm Lilian Carreon. Be sure to join us next time for more updates and stories. And in the meantime, you can find us on YouTube at Lynn iPulse. Have a great weekend.